introduction of our XDE and 9mm, our engineers immediately got to work on another caliber variant for our customers, the XDE 45. Clinching the title of the smallest polymer-framed single-stack hammer-fired pistol on the market today, it's more than ideal for concealed carry purposes, providing an additional option for those who either appendix carry or IWB. The double and single-action trigger system is an ideal solution for those who prefer further peace of mind. Easy racking slide, ambidextrous manual safety, and decocker make this pistol the perfect fit for both new shooters and experienced shooters alike.
And we are live.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
All right, so here we are. We got Sam here. She's going to moderate.
Hey guys.
Another Ask Rob Anything that has turned into Ask Rob's Anything. It's the pre-fall. What are we? I guess we're almost into winter now, right? Officially, Thanksgiving weekend. So Winter Worlds Collide taping is happening. In like a week and a half? We're going to meet up down in Florida.
2 weeks from today.
Oh, you're right. 2 weeks from today. So Pincus here, Personal Defense Network. Rob Leatham, the great one, is here with me tonight, and we're gonna just we're gonna ramble a bit. I imagine we're gonna talk about stuff and things, answer some questions that Sam's gonna give us, both that have been asked over the last week or two of build up, as well as any of the live stuff that comes in tonight. We'll take a break and tell you all about Personal Defense Network along the way, what you can do, how you can get involved with us, and what we've got going on. Meanwhile, it's a slow time of the year as far as classes. I just got back from a 6-week little mini European tour doing classes over there. Did five countries, 6 countries, maybe I taught 6 countries, I don't know. And I have some classes coming up in Florida, one of which is with Mr. Leatham. We're doing the first Worlds Collide live class, and I'm doing a 2-person armed defense class, I think, on the 11th, right after that. And then that's about it. Next thing you know, I'll be back down in Florida in January and starting 2018 courses. And of course, we'll be posting information about the 2018 Personal Defense Network training tour within the next month or so people will know where they can join me and all the rest of the contributing instructors on the tour. What's going on with you, Mr. Latham?
Well, first off, I love how your slow period of time is. I spent, 4 weeks in, I don't know where you were. You're in Austria or somewhere. I don't know, Bangladesh, wherever the hell you were. And then you came home. Did you come home for like 4 days to go to NSDW or something and then go back?
Yeah, I never actually made it back to Colorado or Florida. I flew to Texas, did that, went back over there, here for a day, and I went to Wisconsin to do some stuff with USCCA. And I was here for another day, and I went to Florida to do some stuff. And now I'm here. I'm here all week, though.
Oh, my gosh. A whole week in one place? That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's
I don't even want to tell you what I'm doing because I'm basically laying around watching soccer all day, getting fatter, waiting for our class. I'm building up energy just to try to keep up with you when we start that thing.
That's good. Yeah, you want to have a store. You want to have it's like carb loading. You want to carb load for something.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. Because I can't, I can hit the donuts for you, but I just can't take the monsters as fast as you can. So it's
Well, I've been practicing, so.
Yeah, but for me, it's just been I just finished a class. I did a class with Steve Tirani, which was very, very interesting. What a badass individual and intelligent person. Then I've got the class with you coming up. I got one with Vickers next weekend. This is my season of classes that I'm teaching with people I've always wanted to do classes with. That's what this has been. And got you, and then next year, early next year, I do one with Seeklander. And then hopefully that our thing won't bomb, and we'll be able to maybe knock out another one next year, or maybe a couple of them next year, and see how things go.
I'd like to do one in March, but the kickoff of the tour. I don't team teach a lot, to be honest. Like I team teach in the programs, but I really don't share the range space with somebody that does things differently. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
I know. I'm exactly the same way. So assuming our thing, assuming we do a good job with our thing, and I don't know why it wouldn't work because you know, as we found out in all our interactions, we're a lot closer than we are. We're different on everything, but we're a lot closer than people think we are.
Yeah, and I've promised people that they're going to, that we're going to have fun and they're going to be entertained, and they're probably going to learn something along the way and get some practice. So,
well, that's rule number one. When I do a class, you realize the way I set it up. I said there's classes I want to do classes with people. You know, it's great to make money and that's all wonderful, but I'm not going to do it if I don't enjoy it. So rule number one, I have to enjoy it. If the students learn something along the way and pick something up, that's okay too.
I think that, you know, I look around with all the stuff I'm doing with books, USCCA, Personal Defense Network, the things we do on Worlds Collide. I influence, the number of people I get to influence directly standing on the range is like the smallest piece of the pie nowadays. But I do two things. A, I enjoy it. So I'm going to keep doing it, keep traveling around. B, I think it's also, it's kind of what sharpens the sword, because if I'm just going to talk about stuff online, if I'm just going to write books, I'm just going to do articles, all of a sudden I get less and less relevant if I'm not with the students. And so I think while I am probably going to cut back a little bit next year, maybe only do like 50 classes, it's important to do. It is important to do. I think I did 70, 60, something.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I hope you don't expect me to keep up with that ever. It's just not going to happen.
Hey, we should do like, if you one in the spring and one in the fall with me, and you know, like 20 others.
I get in about, I'll tell you how special it is. I do about 6 or 7 weeks total a year, and that's including traveling, home classes. It's just my schedule's a little bit different in that, you know, I have other priorities to, you know, other masters that come in first, but I still, it's funny, you said it perfectly. You're sharpening the sword. You can't stay away from the range. You got to be on the range. And I learn more now teaching people to shoot than I think I do in my own practice. So I actually enjoy the process. If the student is receptive and the student is paying attention and working as hard as I am, I love teaching. I mean, I really do. And there's nothing, you know, maybe winning a national or world title is fun, but I don't think it's any better than seeing someone who's struggling with something figure it out. I know you know what that means because you've had students that do it. And for me,
yeah, that world champion title thing, I've heard about that.
That's just a series of lucky events that occur in sequence, and if you do it right.
When's the last time you became a world or national champion?
May.
May.
I won the Bianchi. I won the Bianchi Cup, the NRA Action Nationals. I did that.
National, yet another national year for you, 2007. What is that like? How many years in a row that you've won a national or world title? Do you keep track of that anymore? I
don't keep track. I'm not even certain how many I've won. I care about the next one, not the last one. And I'm actually more.
Awesome. When is it? So what's new for what 2018? Right around the corner. Like, you gonna do something new? You're gonna like do everything upside down? What are you gonna?
Well, my goal next year is to actually focus more on IDPA as far as a specific shooting organization. I've been hitting IPSC for so hard for so long, a little bit of interaction, and I haven't been in IDPA for many, many years, maybe even decade or more. And they've had recent rule changes. So I shot the nationals this year with very little practice, and I was a little not shaky, but I was a little soft on the proper techniques. You know, it's not, you got to know the right tricks for the right game, right? Sure. And I wasn't sharp on the right tricks, so I got my ass handed to me. But still being second, you know, in something I haven't been in for a while, it just really motivates me. Getting beat, nothing motivates me more than getting beat. So the fact that I lost now means I'll, you know, full steam ahead and work on that. But I'm more excited about doing the classes with you and Larry and
Well, you know, that I think from my world perspective, it is nothing motivates me more than like a student that has trouble with something, right? A student is just that's what motivates me to focus on. How do I get this guy to understand? How do I get this guy to figure it out? How do I get him over the hump? So I think it's kind of the same thing.
The worst class is when everybody.
Hey, you guys, you're the best.
Thank you.
But I'd like us to start answering some questions, if you don't mind.
See how she just quack.
Aren't there other people involved? I thought this was just a public discussion.
I know. The class is going to be too. By the way, the students, if you're signed up for the class on the 9th and 10th in Florida, be prepared to raise your hand and be like, hey guys,
I've been running these events for like 2 years, you guys, and I'm only just now getting there. So it's okay.
I like it. I like this. I like the sassy Sam. Sassy Sam.
Sassy Sam.
All right.
All right.
How can we help you, Sam?
I'm a better person having known both Robs. Okay. So the first question I've got here, Pincus, it's one you can answer pretty quickly, or at least I'm pretty sure you can. Michael wants to know, when will we see the XDM in 10 millimeter?
Oh, wow. That's not that's a better question for the other Rob.
Okay.
I'm going to predict, I'm going to go with never. Now, I'm going with never with my fingers crossed. I don't know. 10 millimeter trend is amazing. It's the most amazing thing that happened in the gun industry this year is the rebirth, refinding of the 10 millimeter. But I don't know. What do you know, Leatham?
There are 10 millimeter things happening. Well, let me leave it at that. That being said, as something as specific as an XDM in 10 millimeter, I can tell you that it's a perfect platform for it. We have a magazine that would probably already work for it. And I know it's been a discussion in new products meetings I've been in. Now, having said that, I know of no concrete time frame or actual release date or even R&D scheduling date for it. But unlike if you ask me when we're going to come out with an XDS in 30 Luger, I'd say never. I won't say never to the 10 millimeter XDM because with the popularity and the resurgence of its popularity, it's a perfect platform for it, and that's not lost on us. We understand that. So.
Okay. Okay. Since Leatham kind of took that one, I'll just give this one to you again. Pink, I feel silly calling you by your last names, but I'll get over it.
You can call me Robbie P, and he can be Robbie L.
Yeah.
That's like actually more ridiculous. Okay. Robbie P. Scott would like to know, when setting up an AR-15 for typical home defense, 3 to 10 yards, at what range do you zero your red dot optic?
Oh, okay. So here's the trick. And this is a cool question because normally we say that you want to set your tools up and practice your techniques most often for what's most likely to happen. This is one of the variations on that. And I'll tell you why. I just happen to have a home defense AR conveniently positioned right here. So here's a little kind of a home defense setup AR. And what you'll notice is, if you aren't familiar with the AR type firearm, the red dot is way above the barrel, right? So it's kind of hard at this close range, but there's the muzzle way out there. And you can see it kind of comes through the middle of this space. You got like 3 inches there. What that means is that the dot, the optical line of the dot kind of has to go like this to meet the straight line of that barrel, that muzzle. And then of course the bullet's going to drop. So for all the rifle geeks out there, yes, the optical line crosses the bullet path twice, but I only care about the first one. Where it crosses the first time is where it's going to be relevant in that close quarters home defense situation. So what we do is we zero the rifle, depending on barrel length, bullet weight, the exact height, or somewhere like 75 to 100 yards for everybody, good 100 yard zero, right? Why? Here's why. Because now you can put that red dot right at the eyebrows or right at the top of the ear at this level. If you need to if somebody grabs a family member, you need to take that precise shot inside your house. If you're zeroed at 100 yards with a typical AR with a red dot, that red dot right here or the red dot right here is going to drop that bullet somewhere into about a 3-inch little, line or oval, and it's going to hit the area you want it to hit. So the consistency here isn't consistency with your most likely engagement distance. It's consistency with one point of aim on a human head from out, two barrel lengths, 2 muzzle lengths where you're going to bring the gun up anyway, all the way out to 100 yards. 1 point of aim, 1 result. That makes it easy. Leatham, any thoughts?
Absolutely correct. The fact that the sight over the bore means whatever that is, that's the most holdover you could ever be stuck with. So if that's 3 inches and you measure 3 inches from this point on someone's noggin, anytime you hold the dot dead center in that head between the eyebrows or their eyes, you can never hit any lower than 3 inches, no matter what the distance is, until you're past the zero distance, which would be in this case 75 or 100 yards. So I pretty much follow the exact same guidelines you do. I never zero one of these guns for 5 yards. First off, I'm not even sure there's that much adjustment in the scope.
Right.
At that point, you would have the sight here and the barrel's pointed here. Because the problem is if you zeroed it at 5 yards or 10 yards, at 15 yards, and granted that might be for the context we were just given, which is in a house, that means at 15 or 20 yards, the bullet is dramatically rising. But what it means is at 15, 20 yards, you'd have to hold this low.
Yeah, the red dot becomes irrelevant at 100 yards. And
right, and 100 yards,
need the optic.
100 yards, you might have to shoot at their feet or at their crotch to be able to hit them anywhere. And it doesn't get rid of the point blank being low, so there's no reason to worry about it because the holdover isn't that critical. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay. So this question was specifically asked for both of you, and then someone else commented saying it was the best question of the night. So we'll see if they're right. To both Robs, if you had 50,000 rounds, 12 months, and 1 to 2 range trips a week, how would you develop a shooter?
Well, how many? Wait a minute. So 1 or 2, we got 50,000 rounds, so a buttload of ammo. But you're only going to go to the range a couple times a week.
Once or twice. And
you're going to shoot between 1,000 and 500 rounds a session. Wow, you could do damn near anything you want because a great portion of that you're probably going to waste just to make noise. Having said that, what do you want to do? You want to become a 3-gun national champion? You're going to work on your defensive skills. It's going to be close CQB type stuff. I think with that much ammo, I would imagine you can become a master of anything if you have any technical skills. So having said that, I mean, that's dramatically more than – this will be my lowest round count year ever. I think I'm only going to shoot 12 to 15,000 rounds this year because I've been doing so many other things. Having said that, I've been performing pretty well. So 50,000 – does someone really have 50,000 rounds out there to shoot a year?
That is a lot. I think, like, so for me, one thing I always stress is front-loading your practice. So I wouldn't look at it as 500 rounds a session if you're going twice a week. I would look at it as, okay, somewhere really quickly, we're going to build up to shooting a lot of rounds. And then we're going to need less and less rounds as we go on because we're going to start talking about, tactical things and in different applications, different scenarios. We're going to be going out to further distances or we're not going to get as many reps. We're going to be shooting around cover when you're unorthodox shooting positions. We're going to be doing malfunction clearing. We're going to start doing other things. So I don't even know. Like for me personally, if you gave me 50,000 rounds and told me I wasn't going to travel for an entire year, like I can't remember. There may have been a couple years where I shot 50,000 rounds. This year, I probably shot more rounds than you have, Leatham, just because I've been testing the PD10. I mean, I've got like my hand's been beat up. I shot 4,000 rounds in one day a couple weeks ago, just to do it, to punish a bunch of the guns. So I can tell you, having shot that number of rounds with Leatham, I'm sure there's been many years you shot that number of rounds.
Yeah, many.
That's a lot of work. It's like a full-time job.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like you said, you could really kind of set the bar wherever you want. And the only limitations that person would have at that point would be their coordination, their strength, their vision. It would really come down to the physical raw materials that they come in with. But where I would start, we have the curriculum. I would start them with a CFS class, and then I'd move them to the advanced pistol handling class, and then I'd get them through all of our tactics classes and all that as their skill and mindset and ability to keep up cognitively would allow. But 50,000 rounds is an awful lot. Give me 5,000 rounds and you're shooting way more than the average person every year.
Right.
And you could divide that up over the year. Like I said, front loading it, the first month, maybe 1,000 rounds, second month, maybe 500 to 800, next month about the same. And then by the end of the year, you're shooting 100 rounds a month for maintenance.
Yeah, I think it becomes an issue that I think you can start anywhere you want, and if you start referencing where your improvements and focus needs to go to, it'd be hard for me to tell you what to do without seeing you shoot. But let's start off with somebody that's made the commitment to actually have 50,000 rounds and the goal to shoot them for that period of time. I think 2/3 of that ammo I would spend on would be very, very heavy repetition-oriented things, because the first thing I want to do is get all the skills down from the shooting standpoint. That's just the way I look at it. So that as Pincus said, when you get later on in the year or later on, who knows when the rival point comes where you start seeing very small improvements in your technical skill. At that point, you stop worrying about your technical skill because you're probably 30,000 rounds into this thing. You're either worn out the worst shooter in the world or probably the best shooter in the world. One of those positions. At that point, you can really start refining your level of focus to whatever you want it to be. I mean, I'd love to have a student, you know, that had that kind of gumption to work that hard and spend that kind of time and money in it. With that, bottom line, with that kind of resources, your limitation would be based solely on your motivation, your skill, and determination to use it. You can do anything.
I haven't scheduled any classes for 2019, so I'll come up with a good day rate. Whoever, you know, 50,000 rounds, you get me twice a week, maybe me once a week, Leatham once a week. We can, you know, however you want to handle it. We'll 2019. I'm open. Rob at icetraining.us.
Okay, guys. That question was from me. I'm ready to sign up.
Okay, you've got the ammo. Let's go.
And the cash.
I do not have the depth perception. Okay. So this next question is about a specific gun. So I'm just going to ask it and see which of you kind of knows better, since I'm just not as smart as you are when it comes to that stuff. Ron wants to know, how do I get proficient in using the Springfield 1911 compact my wife has gotten me? I'm new to handguns because I've always used rifles and shotguns.
Does it look kind of like, I win this one, Pincus. I got it first. I got it first. I had it first. Okay, so having said that, I don't know if we lost Rob there, his feed. What was the original, what was the twist on the question? How to learn to shoot it?
Yeah, he wants to know just kind of how to best learn how to use the gun, since he is used to rifles and shotguns primarily. So just any tips, I guess.
You gotta be careful with tips, because you either assume the worst, you assume the best. The guy's already a pretty good shot. If he's transitioning from rifles and shotguns, this is his first pistol, then it's like any other pistol. It's harder to aim, it's harder to hold, and movements onto the gun create greater variations of alignment point. So having said that, you got to learn the same thing. The gun itself in specifics, I mean, maybe this isn't the way I'm supposed to technically answer this, but the gun's a gun. And I don't really care what the gun is. You learn the idiosyncrasies. It's a 1911, so it's going to have a thumb safety and it's going to have a grip safety. So you learn how to deactivate the grip safety and operate the thumb safety without thinking about it. The rest of it is the same as, I mean, to me, the gun's a gun. You learn the operation of the specific one. So if it's handguns in general, let's assume it is, because otherwise, if he's transitioning from shooting, I don't know, a polymer striker frame fired gun or whatever, then you just have to learn how to use the grip safety and the thumb safety, and that's simply repetitions and practice. If it's handguns in general from rifles and shotguns, they're really different. In my experience, and Rob, you probably got an alternate view of this, is I get people that come off the rifle world, and they're used to how stable they can hold the gun. They're used to how easy it is. A rifle is so easy to point. When you put the gun against your shoulder, you put your face against it, your face is always looking straight down the top of the gun. So it's so easy to point the gun. All of a sudden, you've got to create that same amount of consistency in your grip and stance. So when your gun's in your hand, you have to be in a position where, just like a rifle, you put your hands out there and you pointed right where you want to be. The pistol has to be the same way. So when you build in what I call the upper triangle, you're building the arm and hand position, the head position that's right over the top of the gun. That becomes probably the most important thing, because people think, well, as long as I can see the sights, I'm good enough to shoot. That's not going to be further true. The whole trigger thing of firing the gun without moving it is a big issue, because all of a sudden you simply don't have that triangulation. You don't have a support here and a support here, where you can on a long gun, where you can sit here and just do whatever you want. Now every little movement moves everything. So, like, Rob, you've got a term for, what's your term for the natural point thing?
Kinesthetic alignment. So the way you move your body, the way you position your body, that is, you know, it's it. The gun, you have 4 points of contact. The long gun, the pistol, you have 1, and you got to make the rest of your body very consistent. And that takes practice, and it takes athleticism. I think that shooting a pistol is more athletic than shooting a rifle. Shooting a pistol well is a more athletic endeavor, and that's probably the biggest thing I would say, is just really work from day one. So if you're starting handguns day one, I think the transition was from rifle and shotguns.
He did say it's his first handgun.
Wow. Yeah, take a look at some of the stuff we have at Personal Defense Network on starting a new shooter. We've got a couple videos on getting started with defensive shooting, And of course, there's plenty of good resources out there as far as getting started in shooting in general. But if it's a compact handgun, I imagine it might be something you're interested in concealed carry. So athletic basis for how you interact with the gun is probably the best advice I can give you. And remember, athletic doesn't mean fitness. Fitness is your raw materials. Athleticism is how you use it. So I'm not saying you have to go join a gym for 6 weeks before you shoot. I'm saying when you're shooting, be engaged with your body.
And you've got to create, I agree 100%, Rob. You've got to get to the point where you can point the gun at where you, the same way you would with a rifle, you got to be able to point the gun and hold it consistently at the same, I don't know, point of impact or point of aim without having to work at it. That doesn't make sense. You've got to get good enough so that if you want the results to be there, so you don't have to think about that. So when you get in either a fight, in my case, in competition, you can't sit there and think about your arm position. You have to do it thousands and thousands of repetitions. And your arms have to become the stock to the gun. And your hands on the gun have to become like the receiver of the gun so that everything stays so well in alignment that then it becomes fundamentally, aim or not aim, point, and then pull the trigger. But to start off with, I know everybody I've ever taken from the rifle world, the first thing knows with the handgun is that the damn thing just moves all over the place, both in recoil and then in presentation. That's why a rifle's better than a handgun, because it's easier to shoot.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna throw this one at you, Pincus. Matt asked, he says, I carry a Glock 43 when I need better concealment. In your opinion, does this firearm with XTP rounds have enough stopping power for an unarmored man?
Yeah, 9mm. 9mm is 9mm. If you're shooting out of a 3-inch barrel, 3.5-inch barrel, 4-inch barrel, it's all in the same realm. A modern bonded hollow point round coming out of a 3 to 5-inch barrel, exactly what I recommend most people look at for personal defense. So I'm carrying the 4-inch XDS right now. There's a 3.3-inch here. It's in the same realm. The Glock, for me, I find it a little bit small. Just not much to hold on to there. But I much prefer a more grip, right? So I'm being scrawny. I don't like a long grip, but something like the XDS is about perfect. The Glock 43 certainly conceals well. Going into, I used to carry a Glock 19 for a long time, right? And then I ended up chopping the grips down to Glock 26 size just because it was easier to conceal. And I think that's that point, right? Carryability. One of the factors of carryability is that concealment, and the comfort factor is the other side. But as far as the round, remember the round, you're not changing much from 3.5 inches, 4.5 inches to 5 inches. Really, I don't know, for me personally, the biggest reason to go to a larger gun is going to be sight radius and recoil management. So the more weight you have out in front of your hand, the easier the gun's going to be to bring back or keep aligned as far as recoil management. And in the longer sight radius for the higher level precision shots, it's not about the extra 100, 150 feet per second.
Yeah, I bet it's not even that much. I'll bet, from probably a Glock, what is it, a 43? That's a 3-inch barrel?
It's right in that range, yeah. It's the sub-stack, single stack.
So 3 point something up to like a 17 is a 4.1 or 4.2 or something. Yeah, the difference in velocity is not the reason to make that decision. It's the same thing you just said. I think you're kind of like me. You don't really like tiny guns. Yeah, right. I like the smallest gun I can shoot well, or the biggest gun I can carry. Whichever way.
And I think that's where the 4-inch barrel for me, that's why I like that single stack 4-inch barrel. I'm surprised in talking with your buddies over at Springfield that the 4-inch XDS just doesn't sell well. And I just think to me, it's just a consumer education that the extra 0.7 inches of barrel over the 3.3-inch concealment wise and carry wise and comfort wise is no big deal. But I think, to me, the feel of it, and you tell me, maybe it's an illusion, but the feel of it to me, those guns shoot so much faster.
No, you're absolutely correct. That's my choice of the guns too. Is a 4-inch version of the XDS, and the shootability difference. I can't sit here and tell you can't shoot the 3.3 really well. I can't tell you can't shoot the short barrels well, because you can. I can tell you that if I'm looking for a performance gain, let's take it from this competition standpoint. The first thing I look for is sight radius, Rob, and I look for size of grip to make manipulation easier, controlling the gun, weight, and length. All those things are the things we add immediately to add performance. So if adding 1.5 ounces or whatever the 4" to the 3.3 is, and the 3/4 of an inch increases my shootability 20% on those two guns, and that's about what it is. I'm going to take that hit every time because that length just doesn't make any difference. Especially for me, when I carry the gun, it's either not concealed or it is in a IWB on the side. And that's the most common method for me to carry it. And I could have a 5" barrel and I wouldn't care. I'd like it better probably.
Okay, I've actually gotten a few questions specifically for Latham here. I'll ask this one first. At what point does trigger control come into play versus relying just on grip? And then they ask the same question, but in regards to extreme distances.
Okay, so how does the give it to me again?
Yeah, sorry. At what point does trigger control come into play versus relying just on grip, especially in reference to extreme distances?
Well, trigger control gets pretty convoluted here. The realistic action of how you should fire the gun is to not move it out of alignment and pull the trigger as fast as you can. Now, when I say fast as you can, that means pulling the trigger as fast as you can do it without moving the gun out of alignment. If we're at 3 or 5 yards away, I'm not playing with the trigger. I mean, you wouldn't even call it trigger control. I would jerk it. I'm going to jerk it from the touch point of the trigger all the way through till it fires, and I'm going to get off the trigger and repeat it. To be able to do that, the grip is severely challenged. So I have to hold the gun well enough that the gun won't move from a violent trigger pull, right? Call it a jerk. That's what it is. Bang, 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 like that. So you can get away with pulling the trigger, poorly is the wrong term. You can get away with pulling the trigger violently and rapidly if you hold the gun well. So the grip becomes the basis for getting away with a poor trigger pull. Now, it's the distance, it's the difficulty of the shot increases, which is either from distance or from size of target or from penalty of missing. You might not be able to get away with the same trigger pulls. And anybody that comes to this class that Rob and I do are going to get my whole thing on trigger pulls. Because there's several different methods of it, but you're always trying to use the easiest one, not necessarily the most precise one, shall we say. Because the most precise one has more steps, is more difficult. Okay? So if you would just hold the gun really, I guess the answer is, if you hold the gun well enough, you can pull the trigger any damn way you want. If you don't hold the gun very well, you're going to have careful, excellent trigger control. And Rob, would you agree with me that that's the hardest thing to teach people to do, is to make fine little touch, feel motions on the trigger? I mean, that's the biggest. I spend more time in the class doing that.
It's the reason I think so many people are drawn to the 1911 and consider it for a defensive purpose. They're fully willing to deal with the potentially less capacity for the guys that are carrying full size ones,
right,
for the gate and everything else, and the safety, the manual safety lever, because of that short, crisp trigger. Wow. Some of the guns that have come to market, some polymer guns the last few years, have what I think are almost like too short, too light, crisp triggers to not have manually operated safeties on them. So I think the other way you solve it is the way you would solve it with like a nice double action revolver trigger. Is it's constant pressure. It doesn't stack up. It doesn't have a bunch of take up and then hit a wall. It's just a constant pressure that you press smoothly. So, you know, like in the PD10, I made it like half an hour without talking about the PD10. So with the PD10, that's what we did with this trigger. It's a consistent trigger press. It doesn't have like the almost nothing hit a wall break. Right. Trying to emulate 1911, it's just constant pressure. I think those are the two things that make it easier for people mechanically, is a short, crisp trigger like you get on the 1911 style, or more like a double action revolver, constant pressure. But to try to get people to deal with the nuances of the modern typical polymer striker fired gun and the mechanics of thinking through that trigger press, that's the most difficult thing we do in classes once we get to higher level precision, headshots at, 4 to 10 yards.
Right.
Actually, speaking of the PDN or PD10, excuse me, we have a question that did come in about it, so I'm going to throw that at you now. Curtis would like to know if you have any idea of the price point on the PD10 and when it will be released.
I just saw one. There's one right there. You can have one right now. He just showed us one. There it is, right there. You can have one right now.
Yeah, $4.99 MSRP. We know that. In fact, we started taking wholesale orders based on that MSRP, so you can expect them in a gun shop, $450, $475. And no, we don't know exactly when they're going to go out. And people know that if they've been following like the saga of the development. we're trying to share as much of the testing and development and kind of news as it happens, but to say when it's going to come out is a guess. But we had a really big testing session about 3 weeks ago, and shot a lot of guns, shot them till they broke in a couple different ways, which is kind of the point of that part of the testing. And we had one thing that kind of surprised us, but almost everything else was almost literally predicted by the engineers or by the design or by certain parts that we were testing out, knowing when it was going to fail or about when it was going to fail or how it was going to fail. The good news is one of the biggest failures we saw consistently in some of the early guns was something that had been fixed a long time ago in the later guns, and it didn't break in the later guns, so that was a good sign. Cool.
Okay, this is another one specifically for you, Leatham. We'll just see if you can answer it. So this is about a video you did, Worlds Collide, Return to Alignment. He said you talk about what you want your arching movement with the gun to look like in recoil when you break the next shot. And he said you use 2 fingers to illustrate, but he didn't understand what you were going for. Do you remember that? And is there any like additional explanation you can give?
So arc of movement, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, he mentioned you did some sort of illustration with 2 fingers and that it was just kind of confusing to him.
So the way I do it, let's pretend like the I'm gonna flip you off. Let's pretend like this is the gun, right? That's the muzzle. All right, I'm gonna put a second finger up there. So this is the muzzle again, because I can't do that, otherwise I'm flipping you off and everybody's gonna get mad at me. So there's the muzzle, there's the muzzle of the gun. When the gun kicks, it's gonna move up to this position. All right? So the arc of movement from alignment point to the highest point it goes. This may be like this may be like this. But for the sake of discussion, let's say when I shoot a gun, this particular gun, if this is alignment point, a dead center shot on the target, the gun will lift clear to this alignment point. All right? So that means the gun goes boom and comes up like that. You know, it looks like this. So when the gun fired, it goes from here and it goes to there. What I want when I'm teaching a student at the beginning phases for them to never have the alignment point go below the target. I never want the gun to go bang, come up, come down. Sorry, can you see it there? Start here. It goes bang, come up, control down, and have to come back up to the target. So I want the arc of movement to stay from this point to wherever it goes and come back here. So it's bang, 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 bang. What happens when we get faster and faster and faster? We have a natural tendency for your brain to start controlling the recoil and predicting when the recoil is going to happen. So when that happens, that arc of movement changes from this to this. Now at 3 or 5 yards, that might move the point of impact 3 to 4 or 5 inches. That won't make any difference if you're shooting at full speed. But as the shots get harder and harder and harder, I need to see more and more and more muzzle flip, because you're going to have the arc. I don't care what you do. The physiology of your body and the fact that you're holding it with soft tissue means you can never make the gun not move. The only way you can do it is by jerking on it the instant it shoots, and that's another problem. So as the shots get harder and harder and harder, the arc of movement, just by nature, moves down here. So when we shoot really fast, we start activating the recoil control cycle. So as the shots get harder and harder and harder, and we don't care so much about the speed element of it, I'm willing to give up the control of the gun and let it flip more to make sure that I never push on it before I shoot. And second, the gun never goes below. So as soon as the sights, I start seeing them again, if I'm even looking at the sights, and Pincus can tell you, I'm not a big sight watcher. But as the gun comes back down and I see some sort of alignment, I don't have to worry about the gun moving below. The gun never goes below. So that's timing of the recoil control cycle. I think that's what he's talking about. And I don't know if that's a clear enough discussion. I can tell you it's hard to explain.
It made sense to me, and I don't know what's what. So
yeah, most of the time I need to put my hands on you to get you to feel some of this kind of stuff. It's just hard to understand it, not seeing it.
Well, hopefully that helps, and if it didn't, just give us another comment and we'll just make him explain it again.
Okay, I'll come at it from another angle then.
There we go. Okay, Pincus, I'm going to give this one to you. If you can afford one AR-15, a good quality one that won't fail when shit hits the fan, which one would you choose? Thank you.
So there's several answers actually, because right now I've lost track of what the pricing is on the AR market. You know, it's like we'll take the Saint, right? We're the night show sponsored by Springfield Armory, and they're good friends of ours. Of course, Rob's been working with them forever, and the Saint came out, I think, like $8.99 retail. Was that the MSRP?
I think that the original one was $8.99. That sounds right.
And that was a bargain for a major company to come out with a reliable, you know, basic AR that you could. It's kind of like Smith and Wesson when they came out with the M&P 15. Hey, Kat. And when they came out with the M&P 15 in the mid 2000s, it was a major company coming out with an AR line that was really fairly priced and was reliable in that price range. So it kind of changed the dial a little bit, because I would always say, you know, plan on spending $1,000. Well, today, the market the way it is right now, you're crazy to get started with an entry level gun at $1,000, because reliability wise, you can get guns from like the one I just set up. This is the CMMG. Bravo Company is another one. Daniel Defense. The Saint is in there. There are guns. There are plenty of guns out there now that are from major names that are well-established companies. The Saint's the kind of the new kid on the block, but you should be able to get a really nice gun as your base for that $1,000 price range or even less, especially the way the market is right now.
Right now, Rob, you can get for $1,000, you can buy pretty upscale. You know,
yeah,
it's a buyer's market.
We've got I think we were right. We were in a kind of an artificial mode for a few years in the industry. You know, having just come back from NASGW. For people who don't know what that is, it's the wholesaler show for the gun industry. It's kind of like the leaders of the retail wholesale distribution chain and all the major manufacturers and even the small guys. That's where they kind of start the process for next year's gun sales cycle. And everyone's just kind of in a patient mode. I think patience is the word. Right now we're in a big lull. We were artificially high for a long time, for several years, in terms of gun sales and gun prices. We've gone artificially low, I think, and it's going to settle down. But if I was actually thinking about it today, like if you want, there was a place I was driving by, retail space for lease, and it's like, you know, if I ever wanted to open a gun shop, like right now would be the time to go get the bank loan or you know, sell a car or something and buy the inventory, because things are incredibly fairly priced, bargain priced. People are fire selling AR parts. So now's the time to do it if you're ever thinking about it. And for $1,000, you should be able to, you know, get the gun, get the optic and the sling, and be ready to take a class.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'm just going to keep going on to the next question. Latham, I'll throw this one at you. Doug would like to know what you should look for when you're searching for advanced firearms training. So like, what are the best things to look for if you're interested in signing up for a class?
Wow, that's a weird question for him to ask us. I almost feel like it's leading, since that's what Pincus and I both do. So
maybe that's why he wants to know.
Well, okay. Well, then here's what I recommend people do. First off, define what it is you want done, because there's really different markets. Like I predominantly deal with marksmanship, mechanics, skill building, things like that. I really don't venture into the tactics or the defensive nature and the application from the standpoint. Doesn't mean I don't know, but it's not my bag, right? It's not my game. Other people have made a study of it far greater than mine, so I keep my activities based on my level of expertise, and that's basically marksmanship. So if what you're trying to learn how to do is you want to learn how to shoot, and you want to learn how to shoot better, and you want to learn skills and skill building and techniques, that's one direction to go. And that's something I do. Rob's world is really quite different than that. You know, we have discussions about this all the time, which of course is what led to us wanting to do this Worlds Collide class, because I think it's a perfect fit. I mean, I'm going to be hammering these guys with marksmanship and skill building stuff the whole time, and Rob's going to be hitting them with real world, you know, I don't want to speak for you, Rob, but real world application and thought processes and things that I just don't really cover, because it's not my world. Now, having said that, a lot depends on what the student wants, and it also depends on what his motivation, I shouldn't say it that way, what his skill level is starting out, because I, as a rule, don't take any new students anyway. I make them go through other people before they get to me. So I'm kind of a prima donna when it comes to that. But there are lots of experienced people, and the only thing that exceeds that number is the bumbling dingbats that are out there teaching people. And I don't mean to pick on everybody, but it seems like at some point in this business, people read enough on the internet, and somehow they've determined that they're a master or an expert at something. The first thing I would look for is that I want the people to be able to do the things they're asking me to do. If I can't I'll never teach you to do it or make you do something in a class that I don't think can't be done every single time. But I've made a study out of teaching it. So I think you need to look at somebody with experience, probably experience in the specific element. If you're looking for defensive training, don't go to me, go to Rob. I mean, I'm not your guy. It doesn't mean I don't know, but I'm not your guy. If you want to learn how to shoot, I'm your guy. So I mean, it's kind of, I'm kind of dancing around the question a little bit because it's too self-serving for me to respond in an honest manner. But having said that, it really depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you break it down this far, say you're a handgunner, you're interested in handguns, and you want to shoot competition, you got to find somebody that's not only a good shot, because there are lots of good shots that can't teach. And there are lots of guys that teach that can't shoot. So you got to find somebody who's got the total package. And that's one of the reasons I'm willing to do I want to do the class with Rob, is because I know when I go into that environment with him, he is an expert and a master in his thing. I feel I am the same thing in mine, but I also know Rob can shoot. He doesn't like to tell everybody that, and he likes to keep it kind of a secret. But the fact is, he's an excellent shot. And if he wasn't, we wouldn't be doing this right now. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, for me, I definitely, you got to be able to teach it. I don't put as much emphasis on being able to do it. That's kind of part of that whole thing is, cut my arms off. I can still make somebody else better in terms of applying.
Right.
That was the perfect phrase that I work on applying the skills. So I'm not the one, if you want to become like one of the top 10% of the shooters in your county or your state or the world, that's where you go to a guy like Leatham. It's not my thing. Like, I get bored out of my mind trying to help people do that. I want people to reach a certain level of applicable skill and then learn how to apply it in more varied and dynamic circumstances with less cognitive thought while thinking about other things. So that's a whole different deal. I think the important thing is identifying your need and identifying the person's ability that you might want to train with to help you reach that goal. And that's where I think it gets confusing with, what their background is, or what their skill ability is, as opposed to what their interest and ability is in helping you reach your goals. Those are really the things. And the way I always do it is this, what Rob was kind of dancing around, the way I say it is, if I didn't think I was teaching the best defensive pistol course available to you, then I shouldn't be teaching. So people will say, well, who else should I train with? Well, I don't know, go take a medical class, go do something else. Because as you just finished my class, I think you just took the best pistol class. You could go practice that stuff a lot, and that's about as serving and self-deprecating as I can get. Is if I didn't think this was the best stuff, I wouldn't be doing it. There's lots, you mentioned Seeklander. Like, I recommend Seeklander all the time. Great guy. But if you've taken my pistol class or you've taken his pistol class, maybe train rifle with the other one, or an advanced kind of tactics application course. Or if you're interested in the IDPA or some of the other competition stuff, go to him for that and come to me for the defensive shooting. It really is important to identify the person's focus, that the person's focus aligns with yours, and that their ability to teach is there, not just their ability to do it. And let me say, before we run out of time, because I know we're getting close, and I have not pimped Personal Defense Network at all. Mike Seeklander is one of our contributing instructors there. Obviously, Rob Leatham helps us out with the live events and with the Worlds Collide videos. He's also there. There's a whole bunch of great instructors, and that would be right. That's my go-to, is like, look, go find someone who's contributed to Personal Defense Network. Obviously, I believe in what I published from them there. I believed in bringing them in as a subject matter expert on a video there, or who's been a contributor to the Personal Defense Network training tour. Of course, our DVDs, we had 112 DVDs out there, and almost half of them involved other instructors. There's a lot of great guys that have been involved with the PDN project going back to 2005. So if you don't want to train with me and you don't want to train with Leatham, or you already have and you want to see something else, look there for the medical guys, for the legal guys, for the psych guys, for all that stuff. And you can go over there and register for free to get a newsletter with all our updates and warning orders on these PDN live events, access to a lot more information. You can become a gold level member if you want to take some of our distance education classes. That's probably the most cost-effective way to do it, because you get some discounts, you get some free classes right there when you sign up for that gold level membership. And obviously, I highly recommend them. It's something I've spent a long time building, 12 years of my life building up Personal Defense Network. So personaldefensenetwork.com for all of that. Commercial over.
Okay. We have about 5 minutes left, and I think this question will fill up most of them, and it's for both of you. And the question is, how would both Robs train a shooter to first work a flinch out of their shooting, and second, how do you guys teach emergency reloads? So whichever one's.
Well,
which one do you want to take first, Layton?
Well, let me hit the flinch thing right off the bat. The biggest problem I deal with every shooter is the flinch, because I have it. Pincus has it. Every shooter I know has a flinch. What the flinch is fundamentally it's a recoil control response, and when it happens matters not that it does happen. So if it happens soon, or during the shot, or before the shot, then you get a low shot or an errant shot. So you have to really identify what it is. It is the single hardest thing to fix because it's poorly understood what it actually does. So for me, I can give you a couple tips, and the gun arc movement thing we talked about before is what you use to teach yourself to do it. When I see a shooter and he doesn't have enough muzzle flip, that can only happen because he's acting on the recoil either before or during the recoil's development, which is as the gun fires. Never misdiagnose what the target's telling you. If every shot you fire is low, even if it's a hit, guys, you're flinching, you're jerking, you're whatever term you want to put on it, you're pushing it down. So recognize that it's telling you it's happening every time. Let the gun kick. Quit fighting the recoil. Let the timing come second nature to you. Hold on tight. Limit its movement as much as possible. Don't worry about returning it. Okay? Let the gun kick. When you let the gun kick, you hardly ever flinch. I mean, that's the short version. On the range, it takes 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, same thing. I said, manage recoil. Don't fight it. You're not trying to avoid it. There's going to be recoil. We're talking about managing recoil. One of the things I'll say to people sometimes, I don't know exactly what it means to them, but it seems to help, is I will tell people to think of the palm position, not the finger position, because the finger position is awfully hard to manage, right? So if you think about like here, like the idea of keeping your fingers parallel, I will tell them not to let the bottom of the palm move back towards the body. So in other words, just almost like keep this area vertical, and that seems to help people when they're nose diving the gun. So kind of take your mind off the recoil. Recoil is going to happen, and think about keeping the palm steady behind the gun, as opposed to worrying about your fingers not pulling down. Because telling somebody not to do something doesn't work as well as telling somebody to do something.
So let me chime in, because you're exactly right, Rob. So keep your gun up there, because that's perfect showing them. So when you show them that movement where they're moving it down, you're applying it to your palm area. It's really the wrist. Yeah. It's really the wrist that's causing the problem, and it moves. Right. And I tell them the same thing in another way. I tell them, listen, if I could fuse your wrist so your wrist couldn't move, then nothing you could do would ever let your wrist move, then you wouldn't have this problem. So you're telling them to keep the back end, because the important part of your hand is the back side. It's the palm area. It's exactly as you explain it. People think it's the finger around the front. It doesn't even matter where they go, because that doesn't set the position of the gun. It's the gun against the back strap of the gun against the palm of your hand between your thumb and your trigger finger and down. So you're exactly right, Rob.
What was the second thing? The second thing was, reloads. So I don't know what I got here. Let me find see what I've got. All right. So reload is you recognize slide lock, pull the gun in, magazine drops free, find a fresh magazine, stick it into the gun. Of course, you're going to be down here in your compressed ready position gun in this area. In, come up, over, and release. So magazine comes out, magazine goes in, and then an overhand rack behind the ejection port to chamber the next round. That's the slide lock or emergency reload from me.
For me, all those things, I find when I have people in a class, I hardly ever have to teach anybody how to reload. I just have to make them do it a whole bunch of times. And then 1 out of 10 people come up with some silly things or can't figure out where the button is. And all you're really doing is just do it the way that's really easy for you to do it. Because what I need you to do is be reliable at it. I don't need you to be blazing quick. I mean, when I do very similar, but when I do the same thing, I almost always drop the slide with off the slide release. So if I go to do the reload, magazine falls, I insert the gun, fingers always out. This is the competition side of me coming out, Rob. I'm always looking for how to gain that last little bit of time, right? So I come in, seat the magazine. I want this hand to immediately go back to my shooting grip. I drop the slide and go here. But once again, it's kind of because we have a different kind of a different world. And I've seen people struggle with hitting the slide release because
I'm just thinking, hey, I might have to strip this magazine, clear a malfunction, sticking up the magazine in, and that's not going to help. So it's always the over and rack because I'd rather give up that quarter, third of a second to get reliability over a wider plausible spectrum. And that's really those nuances of raw competition, speed, controlled environment versus uncontrolled chaos. We need it to work first and foremost.
Agree completely. I mean, everything I'm going to do along those lines is going to be done from the sake of speed because that's my fundamental interest is in the marksmanship and the scoring. But I think whatever way the guy can do reliably, and I know for a fact people, when they get in that environment or they get in that mindset and they get nervous, they get tight, there could be a lot more important things going on around you than getting the gun loaded. In that environment, people lose feel. It's the same way I think you should just jerk the trigger and pull through, is because realistically, you're not going to have the mindset to be sitting there and playing with the trigger. So I need to teach you how to pull it real fast, the same thing. So I agree completely. Whatever your come over the top, if slingshot this way, it's all good for me. I don't care.
We got one more in there.
Yeah. You want one more? Okay.
I got nothing else to do. This is more fun than what I'm going to do after this.
Way to assume I have nothing else to do. Thanks, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he was being selfish. That was just him being selfish.
Okay.
It wasn't a judgment.
This is my last question. Let's see here. Camilla would like to know, what is the best gun insurance to get?
Oh, Leatham, what do you think is the best? Do you mean gun collection insurance, Camilla, or do you think she probably means the self-defense insurance, right?
Camillo, and he did not specify.
All right.
Sorry.
Leatham, would you have thoughts on either gun collection insurance or self-defense kind of legal aftermath insurance?
I have no concept, and that's way into your realm as the legal applications after the use of a firearm. And I don't remember who does mine. I'm going to get in trouble for not knowing that. My wife would be so mad at me. I don't remember. I don't remember who it is.
I think we talked about it before. I always, first of all, on the gun collection stuff, I think Lockton has a great policy. They have available through different outlets. I know through the NRA if it's talking about gun collection stuff, specific stuff, instead of just adding it on to your homeowners or something like that. On the self-defense insurance, for years I've said three things. I've said CCW Safe, I've said Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, and I've said USCCA. And obviously now I'm aligned with USCCA they're doing work with their live instructor development, live fire program for instructor development. And one thing I had to look at, years ago, people would come to me and say, do you think I should have self-defense insurance? What do you recommend I get that? And I'm not really like an insurance person. I'm sort of like, a little bit more cash and carry as far as my life goes. So I'm not the guy that fills out the thing at Best Buy for I don't pay the extra $6 so I can bring the thing back. I figure I paid for it, and if it breaks, I'm done with it. I used it between then and now, or between now and then. So the idea of insurance to me is foreign. But now people don't come to me and say, it's kind of like with ARs. People used to say, should I get a red dot? Now people say, which red dot should I get? Same thing. Which insurance should I get? And when I look at them all, and again, I've been with the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, which is a little different than insurance. I am a life member with CCA for a long time, and I'm happy with all three of the services. But I think USCCA does offer a great value, and I know their customer service, and I know their follow through, and I'm definitely not hesitant at all to be associated with them, even though I'm on the training side, not the insurance sales side. But just to kind of put a package on that with full disclaimers and all that, I think if you look at all three, especially because they do have different ways of handling the aftermath, and they have different educational benefits and kind of year-to-year benefits as a member of the organization, those are the places I would send you.
All right. Well, that's it.
Cool.
You have anything else to say?
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, check out the Worlds Collide. Just Google, Pincus Latham Worlds Collide. You're going to find all the videos that are out there. We're going to be taping more on the 8th. So if you want to hit either one of our social medias and tell us what you'd like to see us cover, I've already had a bunch of great suggestions. I know I have some things I want Latham to cover. Hopefully he has some things he wants to throw at me. And this is our third time doing it. The first time was completely made up. We had no idea what we were doing. The second time, it was more like I had things I wanted to cover and he had some things he wanted to cover. And I think this time I'm just going to like be asking him questions. And that's kind of my challenge to you, Latham, is throw some questions at me that we haven't answered that you think the audience would want to hear my take on and see your response to. And that is a warm-up for our first Worlds Collide class in St. Augustine at my home range, Ancient City. That is the 9th and 10th of December. We're going to be down there. So that's what we're going to be doing. I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend, rest of the holiday weekend. I'm got a lot of family coming in, got friends coming in, and I enjoyed spending some time with one of my friends I don't get to be with very often, Rob Leatham. And Sam, as always, it's a pleasure working with you on these events. Thanks for moderating.
Yeah, anytime.
Any last words?
No, I'm going to shoot a match in the morning, shoot a match Sunday morning, and then try to decide how I could have been better at them on Monday.
To get me into a match.
And I'll see
you in 2018.
That's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's no question. It has.
Like bag over the head, like take me out of a van. I don't want the bag to smell like donuts, though. Don't let the bag
there's no way the van can't smell like donuts, but I'll keep the bag clean. But I'm telling you, that's going to be. It's going to be your next step into a bigger world.
I've been shooting guns for fun this year, by the way.
I know this is crazy. You're kind of blowing the whole thing. I'm not going to get to just slap you with it cold turkey. You actually shot for score. I can't. It's crazy.
Well, I can do that.
All right, guys, we're going offline.
All right. See you guys.